It's an absolute pleasure to welcome one of the Premier League's greatest ever goalkeepers. Hello and welcome to the show, Shaka Hislop.
Hi, David. How are you doing?
Really good. Thank you so much for taking the time, Shaka.
My pleasure.
Shaka,
My pleasure.
tell us everything we need to know about you in 60 seconds.
There's a lot there. I'm 6'4". I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Married, 5 kids. That's all the important things I in my life.
And that only took about 15 seconds, Shaka, so well done. Exceeded the target. So many people will be so delighted to see that you're looking healthy after your health scare last year. What
Thank
happened and
you.
how are you doing now?
I'll be honest. I'm not 100% sure exactly what happened, what caused me to pass out as I did. The tests are ongoing, but as of right now, as I say, it doesn't seem to be anything um, too serious to worry about. Obviously, just as I get older, I have to manage things around my health a whole lot better. Sometimes we take these things for granted, and when you do, life has a way of serving you gentle reminders, and that was mine.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, I'm so glad to see you looking well now,
Thank
Shaka. So,
you.
Shaka, let's go back to the beginning. You were born in Hackney, but you started off your
Yeah.
career at Reading. How did that all come about?
Both my parents are originally from Trinidad and Tobago. My dad was a teacher in England. Went to law school. I was born while he was still at law school. So after he graduated, he moved back to Trinidad. So I was born. Actually, it wasn't Hackney. I was actually born in my folks were living in Victoria at the time. I'm not sure how the Hackney thing came about.
Yeah.
My parents were living in Victoria at the time. And as I say, I was 2 years old when my dad graduated law school, and he moved back to Trinidad. So I have no recollection of my time in England, obviously at 2 years old. Um, so I'm Trini through and through.
And am I right in thinking that, I mean, you're a tall guy. You said you're 6'5", is that right? 6 foot?
6'4", yeah.
Yeah, 6'4". And you were originally a really good striker. Is that right? In the
That's
beginning?
that's the story I tell, David. Absolutely, yes. So the long story to that is, I'd always played as a striker, kind of growing up, and then they were putting together a junior national team in Trinidad and Tobago, an under 12 team. I was only 10 years old at the time, and I was going up for trials with my zonal team. And as I come walking up, I'm there as a striker, but as I come walking to register at the table, the coach takes one look at me and says, "You're the tallest going goal." And so my fate was chosen for me on that day. But I continue to tell everybody who listen that I really am a striker.
So do you think if that didn't happen that day, do you think that you could have had a career as a striker?
I mean, there's absolutely no telling. I'll be honest with you. As I say, I'm only 10 years old at that point, and who knows how things would have gone.
Yeah.
So I'd be guessing, but I'm happy with the way things turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it worked out very well for you. So at the beginning, you played over 100 games for Reading, including playing a starring role in a league campaign where the club finished second, a
Yeah.
position that in any other year would have seen you guys promoted to the Premier League, but not on that occasion, which must have been so disappointing. What happened?
Exactly as I say. Actually, we just been promoted from, well, what was then called the second division, and in today's money is League One. So we got promoted to, again, back in the day was the first division, now the championship. And in all honesty, I think the expectation going into that season was just to avoid relegation. But we got off to this incredible start, and just that momentum took us all the way through. So all of a sudden, we find ourselves up near the top of the table again for the second season running. And again, in a campaign that we were just trying to survive in. But as I say, the numbers they were reducing the numbers in the Premier League, so there were only two promotions. Four teams were being relegated from the Premier League, with only two being promoted. So the automatic promotion spot only went to the team that finished first. That year was Middlesbrough, coached by Brian Robson. And then second through fifth through the playoffs. We finished second. We actually beat Tranmere in the first playoff round, winning 3-0 at Tranmere, and then drawing 0-0 at Elm Park. and then played Bolton in the final at Wembley. And we were going well. We were 2 up with 5 minutes to go, and then they scored with 5 minutes to go, and then scored again very, very late on. Or maybe I had that wrong. Maybe they scored with about 20 minutes to go, and then the second with about 5 minutes to go. And then in extra time, we just couldn't keep up with them. You know, we'd given them everything we had, and they just kind of blew us away in extra time. It eventually was 4-3, but it was far. They were far better than that 1 goal margin suggests, and they were promoted. So we missed out, unfortunately.
Yeah, you were really well thought of at Reading, which is actually a similar a thing that happens in all of your clubs. You can't find somebody to say a bad word about you in anywhere that you played. How aware was you at the time of the other clubs looking at you, and how did the move to Newcastle come about?
I knew that there were other clubs interested. Just for starters, Mark McGee, who of course signed me at Reading, and we had that success in. I'll use today's today's kind of rankings, if you call it that. And we had such success in League One, and then he was the coach to start our championship campaign. But then he moved to Leicester, and I knew he was interested because he'd come in for me pretty much straight away. But as you mentioned, David, we were in the throes of this incredible campaign, and there's no way I was going to move during that season. So at the very least, I knew that was going to be an option. As it also happened, I got married that summer, the summer of '95. So I'd moved back to Trinidad and Tobago. Well, I'd gone back to Trinidad and Tobago for that, and just kind of left it in the hands of my agents. And then just to kind of age myself, just put things in certainly fuller perspective. This is pre-internet and pre-mobile phone, so I'm just kind of waiting for my agent to call when we can get our timings right as to when he'd call and I was at home or near a landline, and we could chat about how things were developing. I came back up for pre-season knowing full well that all the speculation was ramping up, and then it was during our pre-season campaign for Reading that the Newcastle bid was accepted, and I eventually moved.
Yeah, brilliant. When you signed for Newcastle, they had another strong goalkeeper in Pavel Cernacek, and then later on you had to compete with Shay Given. As a goalkeeper, is that ideal? Do you want another goalkeeper that's going to challenge you for the number 1 jersey, or would you rather have an understudy with much less pressure on you?
Well, I think it comes with the territory. I know, during my time at Reading, well, certainly when my first year at Reading, there was Steve Francis, who was the starting goalkeeper, but then the following 2 years, I was pretty much the only goalkeeper on the books for a couple of years. We signed Simon Shepherd very late on. Again, this is in day of the transfer window closing in late March, I think it was. So you could sign players all season long up until the end of March. And we signed Simon Shepherd as cover in those seasons, but largely I was the only goalkeeper on the book, so I had no competition. But then you move to the Premier League, and the expectation is, and the cliche goes, you have 2 good players in every single position, and goalkeeper is no different. So it's part of the course, and the one thing I think certainly works best is when, despite that rivalry, you both can have a good working relationship, and I certainly had that with just about everybody I played with during the course of my career. I think that gets the best out of both goalkeepers.
Yeah. You played for some tremendous managers over your career, and one of those was Kevin Keegan. What's your greatest memory of him?
I thought, well, certainly the one that kind of jumps out first is my first conversation with him. Once that bid was accepted, I grew up idolizing Kevin Keegan, and in those Liverpool days, I remember Ray Clements and Joe Corrigan and Kevin Keegan and his role with those ultra successful Liverpool teams. And then all of a sudden, I've got Kevin Keegan on the other line, saying he wants to sign me for Newcastle, and going there and meeting him and interacting with him in the way that players and managers do. I thought was surreal. As much as it was part of my daily routine now, there was still this kind of element of fairy tale about it. but he was, I thought, for as good a player he was, he was an incredible man manager to everybody as well, and was able to relate. And I think that's something that a lot of great, not all great players can do, because the game comes as easily to the greats. They sometimes don't make very good man managers, in understanding that not everything comes, as simply to everybody else. But I thought he was able to do that, as did Kenny Dalglish, saying that Kenny's another of those Liverpool greats who played under Newcastle, and equally, I thoroughly enjoyed all my time under Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah, and it's funny because you was in that Newcastle team that didn't at times seem to almost want to defend. So as a goalkeeper, you was brought into action a lot in that Newcastle team. Was that something that you enjoyed?
I was fine with it. Kevin Keegan said coming in, he's like, listen, we're not going to keep a whole lot of clean sheets. We're an attacking team, and just kind of be prepared for that. And to be honest, I'm totally fine with it. As long as I play my part for the team, as long as we continue winning, it doesn't matter to me, what the stat sheet looks like otherwise. As long as the team continues to be successful, and it was, and for most of that season, and while it ended disappointingly because of that gap that we were able to establish. Finishing second isn't that bad, and as I say, well, it felt like a gut punch. Looking back on it, it's something that we can be proud of. I finished second 2 seasons running to 2 very good Manchester United teams that still people argue is, or certainly now with Manchester City, people feel is the best team that the Premier League has seen. So looking back, again, I'm quietly proud of it. Promised a whole lot more, but it's fine,
Yeah. You were and are so popular in Newcastle that they have awarded you the freedom of the city. What is that exactly, and how have you made the most of it so far?
So it's I was awarded the freedom of the city as part of because of my involvement and contributions to Show Racism the Red Card, anti-racism education charity that we started when I was there in Newcastle. And has gone on to become the largest anti-racism education charity in the UK. Just using my platform as a footballer to highlight these issues way back then. Started back in 1996. So I'm very proud of the work that the organization continues to do, and the impact that we've been able to make, and in so many ways. Affording opportunities for footballers to tell their stories and to give back in a way that's meaningful to them. How that translates to a benefit of mine, I'm not sure. I've heard that one of the things I can do is I can take my cattle to graze on public lands. I haven't done that yet, David, but I'm in the process of acquiring cattle, so I'll test that theory out to see if it holds true.
Do you still have to pay for carrier bags?
Yes, I do, sadly.
Next up was a move to Upton Park to become a hammer. What was that experience like, Shaka?
As you mentioned, Shay Given had come in. This was under Kenny Dalglish, and I just felt that I needed an opportunity to be number one, to be number one again, and I wanted that, and West Ham was able, West Ham afforded me that. I understood that I was kind of taking over from some incredible goalkeepers, Bernard Lamar, Ludovic McCloskey. There's this kind of this real tradition of these outstanding goalkeepers at West Ham. But Ludovic was kind of coming to retirement age, and I thought it was a good opportunity for him. And Harry wanted me, and I thought that was significant in making my decision. I wanted to feel wanted again, and Harry brought that. And again, another incredible manager, and one I think got the best out of me as a player. So it all came together really well. I remember meeting with Les Sealey, who was the goalkeeper coach at the time, and he and I just connecting so wonderfully well. And I thought once we did, it was an easy decision for me to make.
Yeah. What do you remember about the FA Cup final, and how frustrating was it to come so close to then walk away with a runner-up medal?
Yeah, it was disappointing. There are a couple of things I remember. First of all, the 2006 FA Cup final became my last game in English football. One that we jumped out to the lead of, and then I remember, we were 2-up, and then Liverpool scoring right before half time, and that was a little bit of a blow, the timing of it. But we were able to hold out for most of the second half. And then, of course, I remember Steven Gerrard going down, and then, him getting treatment, and then kind of just getting up, and he found himself in acres of space because he'd just been down, and nobody picked him up, and then the strike from Steven Gerrard, and he just couldn't help but wonder. But then I think, again, extra time just took its toll on our players. I remember specifically Marlon Harewood going down with a really bad injury, but we'd exhausted all our substitutions, so he had to stay on the park. And Pep Reina making an incredible save. I can't remember from who it was, but Pep Reina made this incredible save. And then another chance dropped gloriously for Marlon, but he could barely stand up. And had that chance fallen to anybody else, or had it fallen to Marlon 15 minutes earlier, we would have won the game. But it was a cruel fate, and when you look at all those things kind of put together, and in the end, as I say, it was a huge blow to a team again that exceeded so much expectation during the course of that season. Remember, West Ham were in the Championship and were promoted through the playoffs in 2004, 2005, and then all of a sudden, here we are, this team, and normally, as convention would have it, newly promoted teams are supposed to be fighting against relegation, but we were comfortably top half of the table, put together this FA Cup run. I say comfortably top half. I think we finished 9th, but for most of that season we were top 5, top 6, and then started to fade in the back end of the season as we got deeper in the FA Cup. So again, we exceeded so much expectation, but again, almost like the Reading experience 11 years earlier, it ended in such disappointment, or what felt like disappointment.
Yeah. You left your first spell at West Ham to go and have a wonderful couple of years down in Portsmouth. How do you look back at that time of your life, Shaka?
It was needed. Harry had moved. Glenn Roeder had come in as manager. He signed David James, and again, I just felt I felt surplus requirements, and that I needed to move on. And again, Harry got this job down on South Coast, and gave me a call, and I'd enjoyed working under Harry so much in my first spell at West Ham that it was an easy choice. And he told me about his plans for Pompey, and though it was a step back, he was confident that we'd take 2 steps forward rather quickly. We'd be back in the Premier League before long. And again, just given my relationship with Harry, it was a really easy decision to make, and one that worked well, because we did get promoted straight away that season. So that had been 2002 to 2003. We won the championship in that season, and as fortune, I guess I'll call it, fortune would have it, or fate would have it, West Ham were actually relegated that very season. So I left West Ham to take a step back into the championship to play with Portsmouth, and West Ham and Portsmouth exchanged places.
Yeah, you speak about Harry Redknapp's man management. There's some very interesting, funny stories about how Harry Redknapp used to manage Paul Merson. How aware was you of that in the dressing room? Did you ever see any of those interactions? Was you aware that Paul Merson used to get treated slightly differently?
Oh, we knew, and Merce, would have days off when everybody else didn't. But when you attract somebody like Paul Merson, and he's a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, and so you understand that he can't do things as he once did, and probably needs more rest days than others, and everybody's totally fine with it. And I think what added to that was the fact that Merce was really good for us, in every respect, not just in terms of his performances on the park, but in terms of his leadership. He brought a sense of fun about the place. And there was never any air of arrogance or anything of the sort about Paul Merson. So everybody was totally fine with it, and again, when you're playing well, these things you accept these things. It's when results don't go your way that maybe some of these things become an issue. But when things are going well, you don't, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. And it was going well for the team. It was going well for Merce. So there was absolutely no reason for anybody to have any issue with anything.
Yeah, and that was some team, wasn't it, in the Championship? Very special team to watch, yeah. Now, Shaka, you've done something that the huge majority of people will only ever dream of doing, and that's to represent your country in a World Cup. Tell us about that.
Well, I guess to tell the fullest story, Trinidad and Tobago failed at the final hurdles in qualifying for the 1974 World Cup. We lost to Haiti in 73. In 89, we fell at the final hurdle, losing to the US to qualify for the 1990 World Cup. And then, in all honesty, I thought the team in 2002 was better than the team in 2006. It was kind of the same team: Dwight York, Russell Latipi, Clint Marcel. But we were 4 years older, and so I thought we'd kind of gone past our prime and gone past our best opportunity. But we just put together this incredible run, particularly in the latter stages under Leo Benaka, and we kind of come from nowhere, and finishing in what was fourth spot in CONCACAF, which got us into the playoff with the Asian, I think it was Asian fourth place team, I think it was, which that year was Bahrain. We were at home the first leg. They took the lead. Chris Burchell equalized. I thought that was a really important equalizer. I thought if we lost at home, we would not have been able to get it back. And then in the second leg, away to Bahrain, Dwight York corner kick, Dennis Lawrence meets it with a header. We win 1-0. And we hold out. We really hold out. And while I didn't play in the latter stages of the World Cup qualifying campaign, Kelvin Jack did. And Kelvin Jack was incredible and throughout. And I remember late on in that game against Bahrain, he made this incredible save of a deflected effort that kind of kept it at 1-0. And all of a sudden, now after all these years of hurt, I was a student at university in '89 when we lost to the US, and I never thought I'd see Trinidad and Tobago play in a World Cup, and yet here I was part of a team that qualified, and it really is the stuff that fairy tales are made of.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that he's reported to have taken the shine of that is you guys were promised like some sort of percentage of the earnings from when you was out there. Am I right in thinking that in the end you only end up getting paid like £500 or something like
that?
Well,
that was the offer, and just nothing took the shine off our World Cup appearance. I just from as a fan, as a Trinbagonian, there was nothing, certainly as a football fan, there was nothing more significant. I think I've witnessed in my own lifetime, and that won't change. But to your point, Jack Warner, who is FIFA Vice President and special advisor to the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, for all intents and purposes, he was a chef, cook, and bottle washer. Every decision had to go through him. He had made us an offer to split the commercial revenues, an offer that he then reneged on. So we ended up taking him to court, and despite his measly offer to start with, we won. We won in both arbitration and in the Trinidad and Tobago High Court, and eventually it was settled, albeit some 8 years later. But we came to a settlement with the government of the day at the time. So we did get something, not everything that we were entitled to. But we did get something. I think what it also did was it forced a sense of transparency around our football, because so much of it, and largely so much of world football, is still kind of hidden away, certainly from just not just the players, but also the fans. Some of it just seems to happen in the shadows. But at least we were able to shine a light on that and bring some transparency to football, even in smaller countries like Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, brilliant. We're going to take a very quick break before asking you, Shaka, the signature from the club questions.
No
So,
problem.
Shaka, as you know, as a business, we're all about official signed memorabilia. So these are all memorabilia related questions. Are you ready?
I hope so.
Shaka, have you ever asked anyone for their autograph in person before? And if so, who?
Yes. The only person I've ever asked for their autograph is Mario Kempes. I was 9 years old in '78, where Mario Kempes won the World Cup in Argentina and was playing the tournament, and I just then when I started ESPN, Mario Kempes is one of the analysts for ESPN on the Spanish speaking side, and I can safely say it's the only time I have ever been starstruck, and I got Mario's. I actually went off and bought a retro Argentina shirt with number 10 at the back and brought it for Mario to sign.
Superb. As my next question, what memorabilia do you own? And if so, what is your favourite piece?
I have quite a lot. I mean, certainly as a goalkeeper, you swap shirts with other goalkeepers. Just about every game that you play, particularly in Europe, where it's a done thing. In terms of signed memorabilia, I've got the Kempes, I've got a Pele shirt, I've got Beckham, I've got a signed Muhammad Ali framed photo, but I have a Petr Cech shirt, which also I'm very proud of. And then for the World Cup in 2006, I got the entire squad to sign my goalkeeper shirt, and Adidas did some cleats for Trinidad and Tobago, some boots for Trinidad and Tobago, which I also got the team to sign. So I have a few things that take pride of place.
Wonderful. I remember from your time at Newcastle, you had some of the best goalkeeper shirts, didn't you, during your time there?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, those really were absolutely iconic. I love them. Yeah. I mean, I wish, I can't see it, but I wish they'd go back to doing shirts like that. The one with the Newcastle skylines is still my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could have anyone's autograph, dead or alive, who would you have and why?
That's a really good question. If I could have anyone's autograph, dead or alive, I'd probably Nelson Mandela. I just feel he signified so much of our generation, and particularly the fight for equality. Alive, I'd probably go for Barack Obama. And since we're talking sports, as an autograph, I'd probably go for other than like Muhammad Ali, as I mentioned, maybe a Michael Jordan. Then saying that, I would love to be able to sit down and have dinner with LeBron James. I think as athletes go, he epitomizes so much about the best use of our platform in representing our community.
Yeah. Well, Shaka, it's been an absolute joy to spend some time with you. Thank you so much for your time. Let the listeners know how they can follow you on social media, and also let us know your closing thoughts.
I'm only on Instagram, and it's simple at Shaka Hislop on there. I don't do much. I don't reply to anything on there. I don't post much, so I'm not a recommended follow. Closing thoughts. I will say thank you very much. It's always great to have a little stroll down down memory lane. You know, sometimes I'll take so much for granted about yesteryear, and it's good just to relive them. It does feel, it feels a little surreal, and it's always kind of, it's always the word I'm looking for. It's always so fulfilling to just kind of recognize that, you know, some of the things that I was able to do with my life. I'm just a young black guy. I think I used to be a young black guy from Trinidad and Tobago, and have left my own footprints in the sand.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Shaka. It's been a real pleasure.